This is Frank Consella with the Crested Butte Home podcast, and this week my guest is Ciera Freson. And Ciera originally came to the Gunnison Valley and Crested Butte to be a ski racer at Western State. And in fact, she's still involved because she's now the coach at Western. And in the summer, she is a wedding planner with Lucky Penny Events. And so we got to have a lot of fun talking about all the fun weddings that she gets to do in the summertime in Crested Butte. You can visit Crested Butte is home for all of my other podcast interviews, as well as Crested Butte and Gunnison real estate information. And let's go ahead and get to the interview with Ciera. Today on the Crested Butte is Home podcast, my guest is Ciera Freson. So tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're from and all that good stuff.
All right. So I grew up in Wenatchee, Washington, the apple capital of the world. Fun fact, I don't like apples. But I think something that really captures who I am and made me to what I am today is that I grew up ski racing. So my parents' approach to skiing was my mom thought it would be really fun to get me in ski lessons just in case there was a snow day growing up and I had something to do, which became a lot more than just that. And funny, I never actually had a snow day growing up. But my mom put me in ski lessons when I was in first grade. And by the time I was in fourth grade, I started racing, ski racing, GS and slalom. And that morphed into what was really my high school career of racing all over the country, down in Chile. So I did a bunch of FIS races all over the country. And then by my sophomore year in high school, I chose to move to Bend, Oregon in the winters. So between November to April, I lived with a host family all 3 years. So my sophomore, junior, and senior year of high school, I went to another high school, attended an academy. And so my focus was really just focusing on ski racing, getting faster. And during the off season, during the summertime, I would go to Mammoth and ski, as well as Chile. That was just my sole focus. While I was growing up, I missed a year and a half of high school with all of my absences
If
together.
you added it all up.
Yeah, if I added it all up, a year and a half of high school was missed. So then the college search process came around, and I knew that I wanted to go race NCAA for some school. I knew I didn't want to go to the East Coast. So that only left 9 schools in the West that had an NCAA ski team. And that list quickly got narrowed down to Western.
Why was that?
In Gunnison. It was a little combination of talking to the coach. It had the program at the time that I wanted to study, which I didn't end up actually graduating in.
What was that?
I came into Western as a pre-med major, and that changed 2 weeks in.
Sure. Fair enough.
So, I got to Western in 2007, sight unseen. So I was just fingers crossed. I knew that it had an NCAA ski team, and that was my only priority at the time.
There must be a ski somewhere nearby.
Exactly. There must be. I think I figured out what it was. So I came in 2007, raced NCAA for Western 2007, 2008, so my freshman year. And then the summer going into my sophomore year, I received a letter, I guess before internet and email was super popular, that Western had cut the NCAA program as an entirety. So that summer I considered transferring, but more, I just came to Western and Gunnison because of skiing. But there was so much more that I discovered during my freshman year, mountain biking and just my professors and the small classes and a program that I really liked, which I'll circle back in a second. So I decided to stick around, race for the club team my sophomore year at Western. And then after that year, I kind of got a little burnt out. So I switched over to the big mountain team that was being created and then graduated in 2011 with a business degree in marketing, a minor in sociology and economics.
Okay, there we go. Well, let's back up a little bit.
Okay.
So Wenatchee. So what was the ski area then that you were starting your race career at?
So Mission Ridge is 12 miles away from Wenatchee, Washington.
Okay.
Wenatchee's a pretty big city. Well,
and it's east side of the Cascades, right?
Correct. Yep, okay. Right in the center of the state. So it has a very similar climate to Gunnison and the Crested Butte area, kind of a high desert, sagebrush. And it's a very tiny little ski resort. It has 4 lifts, and at the time they were all 2-person slow chairs.
Sure.
But yep, that's where
I've heard it's a fun ski area though.
It is.
Yeah.
Yep.
Nice. And then you went to band, and that was bachelor, and that was just because there was a better program, basically?
Yeah, so the program that I was involved in when I was a sophomore disintegrated actually halfway through the season, my sophomore year of high school. So it was pretty much a decision of, well, are you done racing? Or where are you going to move? So
what you're saying is if you're ski racing, then the program's about to die.
Oh, I guess wherever I go, maybe. Hopefully not.
Right. Okay, well, you soon went through that, so you did club level, and then just kind of you were good with that at Western after a year.
And I struggled with it a bit, going from NCAA, super competitive, I got a 7th place finish in an NCAA race, which was insanely
awesome.
Like one of my most successful finishes ever. And then going to club, I actually won the overall division title, the one and only year I did it. And it sounds bratty, but I was looking for a challenge. And after racing for so long too, I burnt out. And so I left racing thinking I would never go back.
Would there have been another level, do you think? Like, if you had continued on there and maybe even transferred somewhere that still had NCAAs, you think Europa Cup or World Cup even was possibly in your future? Or?
There was a one point in time before I blew out my knee the first time that the U.S. ski team was certainly a goal, and hence why I put so much time and work and effort, and my parents supported me so much. But I do think that first knee injury definitely set me back. I wasn't on snow for almost a year, and then another year of not having the confidence, and just really set me back. So in retrospect, I wouldn't have changed anything, and I learned a lot from it, and I love where I ended up today.
Sure.
And I know that wouldn't have happened if I hadn't blown out my knee. But it was certainly on the docket. I was winning the downhill races as a 13-year-old, all the way up, like the age range 13 to 18. Actually the day before I blew out my knee. So, I was fast, especially in speed. So there's potentially but after that, no, not really.
But you kept skiing, obviously, so talk about what that morphed into from racing to something else.
So going into my junior year of college, that's when I was kind of like, I'm not feeling racing anymore, but I'm not ready to give up that competitive side of skiing. So my boyfriend, now husband, Eric, introduced me to the world of freeride and big mountain comps. And kind of a soppy love story, really. But he knew that I was potentially considered, I think he thought I was going to transfer because there wasn't a competitive skiing at Western for me. So he actually, with a friend, Jason Holton, started the big mountain team. And I secretly think, well, he's said it. It's true. He started it to keep me around. So
good thought on his part. Good job.
I did big mountain comps, which I absolutely loved, for the next 5 years. So I finished out my college career still competing, but on a whole different level. And it was really interesting to go from a timed sport to a judged sport. That was a little hard for me at first.
It is.
But I get it. I get the whole criteria now, and it's fun. It's fun to watch. It's fun to be a part of. The culture within it is just a blast. And the reason I quit that was I blew out my knee again while walking in the parking lot, of course.
Of course.
So again, another whole season kind of ended, and
And that was
That's the last time I competed.
But you're still involved, so at Western. So talk about that job, your winter job.
Right. So I started out, backtracking a little bit. I started working for Western as a full-time job in the admissions and marketing department 10 days after I graduated college.
Awesome.
I had a great experience at Western and wanted to continue sharing that. So I worked for them for 4 years, and during that time I started a business, which I'm guessing we'll get to. And so it got to the point where I really wanted to focus on that business, but didn't want to give up my involvement at Western, my involvement with students. So an opportunity arose where I quit my full-time job, really got to focus on my business, but I also wanted to still be involved. So the alpine head coach at Western, the position for the club team, became available. So I interviewed for that in 2015, and I've been the head coach for Western's ski team ever since then. And oh my gosh, like I said, I left racing with a pretty bitter taste in my mouth. And the athletes that I've had the last 4 years and the experiences that I've had and the stories that have been created and memories and the success as well has just turned that whole bitterness around. And
awesome.
I love ski racing again.
And that's all ski racing, that's not big mountain.
Correct. Yep. So we race all around Colorado, about 5 races, January and February. Then we head to regionals somewhere, Idaho, Montana, Colorado. And then from there, if we qualify for nationals, we'll either go to the East Coast or the West Coast for those. And
gotcha.
So.
And that's, so what are some of the other colleges then that Western is now competing against now as a club?
There are 9 schools that compete in our 5 races around Colorado. They're all, minus Utah, comes to a few of them, but they're all Colorado schools. So Colorado Mesa, Colorado School of Mines, Air Force, Boulder, CSU.
But for CU Boulder, then that's like their JV then? Or?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So they still have their NCAA team. Utah also has their NCAA team.
And DU, of course.
Exactly.
Those are kind of the big 3 Western ones.
Exactly. Yep. It is.
But okay, cool. Well, let's just transition because it's late April and I'm still skiing, but most people aren't. But let's go to the summer because summer is gearing up. In the Crested Butte Real Estate Minute, I thought it would be appropriate to talk about the Gunnison real estate market since that's where Ciera lives. And if I was to use one word to describe the market in Gunnison right now, it would be busy. I have some buyers who just went under contract this weekend, and it was actually the 4th home that they'd tried to purchase. That's how quickly things had been moving in Gunnison here in the first half of 2019. So if you're a homeowner in Gunnison and you've been considering selling, I would suggest that now is a pretty darn good time to do so. And you can get in touch with me and talk about it by visiting CrestedButteRealEstateAgent.com, and my contact information is there. Let's get back to the interview with Ciera.
Yes.
So what do you do? And we beat around the bush a little bit. What do you do in the summer then for work?
So my business that I started in 2015 is Lucky Penny Events. And that all started because I planned my own wedding in 2014 and loved every single aspect of it. I also always knew that I wanted to own my own business and have that entrepreneurial spirit. I just was inspired. I remember a week after our wedding, I was like, Eric, I have this crazy idea. I think I want to start a business and be a wedding planner. And he's like, do it.
Nice.
So I did it. And I do remember when I launched my website at like 2 a.m. in October of 2014, I was like, well, maybe in 5 years, this will be a full-time thing. That was not accurate. 6 months later, I quit my full-time job to really focus on it. And now 4 years out, it's very, very much a full-time thing. And I've added a whole nother facet to the planning world. So I still am a wedding planner, and I take about 16 weddings on each summer. And then Eric and I started a rental business 3 years ago. So we have literally everything you would need to have an event, from tents, tables, chairs, lighting, decor. Oh my gosh. Rugs.
Audio, all that stuff.
All of it. Yeah.
So when you were planning your own wedding then, and you actually liked it, so I guess you did not call yourself Bridezilla? Or were you like, you had the plan and everything went smooth, and that's why I assume it went well, because otherwise you probably wouldn't have liked it.
Yes. So we were engaged for 16 months, which let me...
You had some time.
I had some time. I also love crafting. So I with my mom's help, made all of my bouquets from paper and cut flowers out. And so I crafted literally every element of my wedding, down to the fact that I would never do this again, but I cooked all 300 cupcakes and frosted them. And it's ridiculous. It's stupid. But I learned a lot from it. I loved the whole planning aspect and trying to figure out little portions, and also working with vendors and getting to know people in the valley. So I just loved it. And I was in charge of some events at Western at the time too. So the event world wasn't foreign to me,
sure.
But the wedding world obviously was.
Well, that seems like a lot of pressure. I mean, for me in real estate, obviously it's a huge purchase for somebody, and it's stressful for me to make sure that it's perfect, and that's obviously it's still a ton of money for a wedding, but it's even more emotional, I think, probably for most people, to have that perfect day. So how do you handle that pressure?
Well, I balance it with working with my couples. Pretty much every single one of my couples has booked me at least a year out. So I'm working with my couples, at least 1 to 2 years out, which sounds crazy. But for the budgets that they have, and finding the best vendor team, it's really not that insane. We get to know each other really well. We have one of my brides is actually in my phone as one of my favorites, not because I listed her as that, but just because we literally talk every single day. And my phone thinks
you're best friends.
Yep, exactly. So I get to know my couples really well. We have an A, B, C, F plan for every single thing. And I also really let my couples know that I'm there for them. I've got their back. They're there to have fun. Their parents, that's key too, are also there to have fun and relax. And I will get them a whiskey on the rocks all night long, so they don't have to worry about a thing. So I really think that planning so far out, as well as my personality, I can honestly say I've never worked with a bridezilla, because I think it's a combo of working out all those details, letting them feel comfortable with everything, letting them know it could rain, but this is the backup plan.
Sure.
But also, I think that I'm laid back, and to the point that those uptight brides don't really want to work with me, which is fine. Yeah. Absolutely fine.
Right. And they may not actually want to get married in Gunnison or Crested Butte either.
Exactly.
Well, how you kind of mentioned it, but you grew very quickly, it sounds like, right off the bat. And how has business gone? I mean, it looks like you guys even have employees and everything. It's growing.
It's growing more than I ever had hoped. Again, back to that, maybe this will be a full-time thing in 5 years. We're entering our 5th year of planning this coming summer, and it's amazing. So on the planning side, I started working when I quit my full-time job just to make ends meet. I was balancing 5 different jobs at the time. But with that said, I was working for a venue as well. And so I got some hands-on experience with weddings that I might not have been planning. So the first year started picking up traction. I recognized how important photo shoots were to actually capture my style and my clientele. I remember, reading blogs about how to start a business. And they're like, write down your ideal bride. Write down her name.
The avatar.
Yeah, exactly. Her middle name and where she shops. And I was like, anyone that trusts me to plan their wedding. But now I very much know who my ideal clientele on the planning side is. And based on those experiences, have purchased equipment on the rental side to cater to those couples as well. Higher end things that are maybe more expensive, not so much a white plastic folding chair for $1.50 that you're renting, but a really nice wood crossback chair that is much more than $1.50 to rent, but
Gotcha.
a certain style. So, yeah, just capturing my vision and style in photos and the importance of marketing.
Yeah, no, and that's interesting. And as I was, researching this a little bit, it kept striking me how similar certain aspects, very, very surprisingly to me, were between real estate and what you do. And I have the same thing. I have perfect clients too, and
houses that you want to sell,
and it goes so much easier when it's like that. So
it's a very enjoyable process.
Yeah. So you live down in Gunnison, not up here in Crested Butte. So are most of your events down there? Is it half and half? What's your spread like there?
Actually, only one of my couples is a local this year. So I have 16 weddings that I am planning and a lot more on the rental side. I feel like I know about every single wedding in this valley. But so for my 16 couples right now, one is a local.
Okay.
Down in Gunnison, and the other 15 are from either the Front Range or out of state. And
sure.
My couples range from anywhere from New York City to Hawaii and everything in between.
And but the actual ceremony and reception and stuff, is that usually in Gunnison or Crested Butte?
Usually up in Crested Butte.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So how is it different then between the local, who may have some set ideas of where they want to get married and what they want and who their vendors even want, versus somebody from Austin or Boulder or whatever, who are just like, I don't know, you tell me what do we need to do here?
I honestly think it's two different factors. Budget is one. Mm-hmm. The locals might not have as big of a budget. Mm-hmm. And then secondly, the locals know the small town well enough, especially if they've lived here for a couple of years or longer, and they know who to reach out to. So they're kind of becoming their own wedding planner.
Sure.
Yeah. So I think that would be why a majority of my couples, or I don't get many locals.
Because they do already have
the knowledge.
So you mentioned it too, rental business then. So those aren't just for your events then. They're for every other kind of event too, not just weddings. Obviously, they'd be all kinds of different things.
Exactly. So we actually just set up our 40 by 40 foot tent, which is very white and very wedding looking, for Carnival down in Gunnison at the iBar this past weekend, which was a cannabis event. So no, not a wedding event.
Not a wedding event.
Yep. And we're working with some nonprofits for different fundraisers throughout the summer. I've done family reunion tent setups, you name it. Any event you need anything for, we cover it.
You got it.
Yep.
Yep.
It's been really fun to research the different styles and trends going on in the wedding world and, pick and choose what I really want in this valley, that I think will sell in this valley, and moving forward with it.
There you go.
Owning 700 chairs.
Hopefully you've got a good place for them to live when they're not being used.
We've found some storage.
Yeah. So you keep mentioning 16, right? 16 weddings. So is that like one every weekend?
Yep.
Almost,
so in my mind, when I started mapping out ideal, what could the potential be with the planning world, most weddings happen in this valley between like mid to the end of June, when it really starts to get green. The rain showers have kind of tapered off, or the unpredictable weather, we should say. And then those go through the end of September. So the weekends, there are 16 weekends in that time frame. So that, at the time I was like, perfect. Yep, 16. I've learned that I don't want to work every single weekend. Like, I live in this valley.
That sounds tough.
And I love mountain biking, and I don't really get to do it a whole lot anymore. But, the balance of your passions and work and making your own business work. So 16 is the number I got to. I've, the past few years, had up to 21 events, which was just too much.
Gotcha.
And I recognized that I wasn't ever seeing Eric. I was always exhausted. It was just not rinse and repeat, because every wedding, every couple is so different. But it was very much set up a wedding on Friday, run the rehearsal, run the 17-hour wedding day on Saturday, break down on Sunday, sleep Monday, and then start all over again Tuesday, and then all of a sudden it's October.
Because on Tuesday, that's the day that like the next family is arriving.
Exactly.
And you're doing those other pre-meetings and all this other stuff. Huh?
Exactly. And with the rentals, so last year I had 21 weddings, and I helped Eric and our crew set up a lot of those weddings.
Sure.
Just to help them figure out layouts and save money on employees too. But I've certainly realized that going to keep me a little, cutting back on the number of weddings that I'm planning, but also cutting back a little bit on working so much with the rentals. Like, I don't have to be everywhere all the time.
Right.
I will burn out that way.
How hard do you think it's harder here than, say, if you were in a bigger city, especially, I don't know, you're picturing like the movie scene where the dress is like messed up and there just are fewer people here that can help in emergencies for certain things.
There are, but at the same time, I was actually thinking about this week. I am pretty appreciative. I think it would be a lot harder to be a wedding planner in a bigger city where there's so many different vendors, and I've worked with every single wedding vendor in this valley and have great relationships with them all. And I know, if a wedding dress needs to be altered the day before the wedding, like I have somebody in my cell phone on speed dial. It does become a little bit of a bummer because there are so many weddings coming to this valley. And we have limited resources, like hair and makeup, for instance. We don't have a whole lot. And so when the first 4 weddings book up the 4 different options in the valley, there's probably 10 other weddings happening that weekend. And they're going to be bringing in people from Denver, people from New York, people from LA, which is insane, but it happens. And so it also is helpful that I'm working with my couple so far out that we can just kind of lock those people in. Get those
first slots.
Exactly.
Sounds like there's a job opportunity for
hair and makeup.
Okay. Any other ones? What are the other ones?
We're lacking on officiants and guitar players, which is odd to me. I feel like there's a lot of people that play guitar.
There are a ton of people that play guitar. You think that would be... But I guess they don't have a website or they're not out there, but...
Email me.
I assume, are most of the weddings here, they're usually outside? How many do you do many church weddings?
I do about 1 a year.
Yeah, it is about that.
Yeah.
Wow.
So most all are outside, and I pack umbrellas for all of them, just in case.
Yeah.
Just in case.
Got to. I wasn't going to ask this, but I just started thinking about this. I mean, people spend so much money on a wedding, and it is a one-day thing. What are your thoughts on that? To spend that kind of money for one day?
That is a good question. How do I feel about that? From a selfish perspective, like I'm a very creative person and I love thinking outside the box. And with a bigger budget, like I get to do more fun things. Like I just confirmed that I have 2 ponies coming to a wedding.
Whoa, ponies.
And they're going to be wearing unicorn horns. It's going to be great.
Gosh, cool.
So I love unique things. So bigger budgets allow that to happen a little bit more. I do appreciate that people are choosing Crested Butte as their unique location to get married and spend that money here because it really runs our economy. I was thinking about the budgets and adding them all up for my 16 weddings, and but just between those weddings and just what the family is spending, so not including lodging that the guests are spending, not including that at all, it's over $1 million just in the 16 weddings that I am doing. And it's really hard to guess how many weddings happen in this valley because, some could just bring in a 17-person band on the other perspective. But, say there's 200 weddings, which I don't think is unrealistic. That is a lot of money that's running our economy. And as an econ minor at Western, I see the value in that.
Sure.
So,
and I, when I was first here, I was working in banquets locally. I know the deal. I saw it, and that was 20 years ago when it was, small time. And I guess that was kind of a tough question, but I will say that, when my wife Brittany and I were talking about it, I mean, it was just so worth it to do, to have all these family members come and see this place where we live, who wouldn't have otherwise if we had just gone and done this little thing. And
club where you grew up.
Yeah, it just it's really cool to get people here and see this place. And so
absolutely,
it's cool. So.
Well, and a lot of people treat it as a vacation. You know, the guests coming in are like, well, this is our week-long summer vacation. So they'll spend 7-9 days in the valley to just experience it. You know, go ziplining up on the mountain, go horseback riding. And my couples and I list different activities for those couples on their wedding website just to have them explore and experience Crested Butte.
Yep, exactly. Brittany did all that stuff. She'd be really good if she ever needs a new job. She could join your team. But when you aren't, what else are you into here? You mentioned mountain biking a couple times. Talk about getting into that.
So I like to classify myself as a pretty adventurous, outdoorsy person. I had that personality when I got here, but I would say I didn't really have the experience in much other than skiing before I got here and met Eric, my husband. So I live at the base of Hartman Rocks. So I try to get out a couple times a week and go mountain biking out there. You know, I dabble in fishing. I'm definitely not great at it.
Fly fishing or?
No, just regular casting.
Okay, fair enough.
But I'm always down for an adventure. Like, those are my go-tos. But if some friends want to rent some sup, like a stand-up paddleboard and go down the river, like, let's do it. Or go kayak fishing on the Blue Mesa. I've done that, and it was a blast. Some of the most relaxing fishing I've ever done. I do hunt, which is a new thing for me in the last 3 years.
And when you say hunt, you're hunting?
Elk.
Yep.
So it's funny how it's transitioned over the years. Eric got into it. The next year I was like, well, I guess I'll take a stab at this. I think I had a hot pink rain jacket and purple down coat and like no waterproof pants. And I got kind of bored out there. I didn't know what was going on. Year 2, I was like, all right, I'm getting some camo. I'm going to take this a little more seriously. I broke my thumb out there.
How'd you break your thumb? That sounds like a story.
It was 9 o'clock in the morning of closing day. I stepped over a log and slipped and like landed full body weight on my thumb. So it's not that exciting, but I did get an elk that day, but I didn't shoot it until like 5 p.m.
Oh, wow.
So it was a long day.
Last part of the last day. It was
5 minutes before closing light. And then we didn't get to the truck till like 2 in the morning. So it was a long day. But that year was exciting. That was my first cow. That was my first elk. And then year 3, which was last year, I had some close shots, like potential, but didn't get anything. But it's so fun.
Didn't pull the trigger or missed?
Neither. I didn't have like the exact opportunity. Like I saw them from afar.
Okay.
So it was just, that's hunting. If they hear you or smell you, they're out of there.
What do your
gotta be sneaky.
What do your couples think of their wedding planner? Standing over the
I know, like they just planned your wedding. That's a good question.
It's an interesting juxtaposition if you picture both. It's kind of funny.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm also really vocal. I'm not really vocal that I hunt. And I'm not out there to like get the biggest elk and just like shoot and kill something. Not at all the approach I take. Like Eric and I intentionally shoot an animal, are very respectful. I had a shot one year where I didn't pull the trigger because I didn't feel comfortable with the shot for some reason. And I didn't want to injure it, potentially lose the animal. So we're very conscious. We practice a lot, making sure we're confident going out for our seasons. And so it's really just, we know where the meat's coming from. We process all of our meat ourselves. We make mostly burger and mix it with some bacon in there. So,
Good
it's
stuff.
Just nice to have elk meat in the freezer.
And it's definitely organic and all these other things.
Exactly.
It's fun. Hunting's one of those interesting... If I could go back to my 14-year-old self who was very anti-hunting, Like, it's actually okay. It's,
Yeah. And it was hard for me to even process it when Eric started. I was like, oh, how would you even pull the trigger? Like, that's such a big animal. Like, but in the moment, like, it all kind of makes sense.
Yeah. Well, let's start to wrap it up a little bit. And Crested Butte and the Gunnison Valley is home for you. So why do you still choose to make it your home?
It's the balance of the community that encourages me and pushes me to have my own business. It's great to be surrounded by people that cheer you on, but also challenge you, like make you better. But also that balanced with all the adventures that Crested Butte has to offer.
That we can do.
Yeah, exactly.
Where can people learn more about you and your business?
So my website, my husband and I's website, is luckypenny.events. So the business name is Lucky Penny Events and Rentals. Now it's morphed since we added rentals. So again, it's luckypenny.events. Do you want to know why it's named Lucky Penny?
Oh, this is it. I read the story. I guess I should have thrown it in there, but yes.
It's kind of a fun story.
It is a good story.
So there's the saying, something new, something old, something borrowed, and something blue, and a sixpence for her shoe. So that's a very old saying.
I've never heard the last part.
I know. The last part is very often left off, but it's for prosperity. And so my great-great-grandfather gave my great-grandmother a 1917 penny, like not a wheat penny, but a penny. She put it in her shoe. And that exact penny then was passed down to my grandma, my mother, and then me on my wedding day. So I have a photo of the 1917 penny in my wedding shoe, and that is what inspired the name. I would say running a business, every decision I have made, naming a business was one of the hardest.
Yeah, I bet.
So,
do you have any siblings who could have also gotten that penny?
I have half sisters, but they're on my dad's side. So
they
don't
get the penny.
They don't get
yours.
the penny.
Where does the penny live?
It's framed now in my office in a shadow box.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Nice. Very cool. So, and we kind of skipped over it, but your website and your and you also have Instagram and Facebook too. And,
exactly.
And it's all really good stuff. You have great imagery all the time. So
Thank you.
People should check it out. Anything else I should have asked other than the penny thing we just went into?
I don't think so. Nothing comes to mind.
We covered it.
We covered it all.
Okay. And then the last question I always ask is, who else should I interview?
I think you should interview Tanith Martinez. She is a total badass.
Who I don't know her, so tell me more about.
So Tanith has a really fascinating history, which I'm not going to spoil.
Okay.
But she currently, a couple of years ago, she bought a plane, and she has it stored at the Gunnison Airport, and goes to the Gunnison Airport every single day and teaches people how to fly planes.
Oh,
She's pretty fascinating. Pretty cool person. I used to work with her at Western as well.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
That's a good answer. That sounds like an interesting interview potential.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Crested Butte is Home podcast. This is your host, Frank Consella. And I wanted to say thank you to all my listeners. I released my first episode a year ago this month in May of 2018. So I've made it to a year. This is episode 33. Statistically, most podcasts don't even make it to episode number 8. About 50% stop by episode 7. There's even a term for it called pod fade, which basically just means that people burn out on doing this. It's a lot of work. So hope you enjoy the show, and if you do, please let your friends know so that I can feel like all of this effort on my part is worth it, although I really do enjoy it a lot. So anyway, thanks again for listening to the Crested Butte is Home podcast, and I will see you again in a couple of weeks.